Next time they ask us to scout live deployments, remind me to pretend I've got a concussion.
You're assuming we'll be invited back after losing 4 candidates and a light transport.
Those guys were not ready, Jacob. None of them.
Sponsored by Chrono.
Still,
Performance.
nice of Chronicles Enterprise to throw us a bone. Box seats at the IGLF Grand Tournament.
Yeah. After that disaster, I think this is our reassignment.
Better than another rotation in Prolong's R&D simulator. At least here, the explosions are scheduled.
This is what passes for talent scouting now? Pretty nice.
Sanctions, stable, public, crossfire. If one of them stands out, fight their handler and get them in the system.
And if they don't?
Then we get a show. And we go back to filing empty dossiers.
So what do you know about the first match?
Baba Yaya versus Star Force 1. Horus versus Union.
That's not a match. That's a message.
Welcome, Sentients and Simulacra, to the first annual Intergalactic Rising Federation Grand Tournament, broadcasting live across the OmniNet.
Thanks for that introduction, Chet. Tonight's exhibition match features 2 titanic forces from opposite ends of the metaphysical spectrum.
In the red corner, broadcasting chaos straight from the fractured dreams of Medieval Dyad, we've got Baba Yaya, led by none other than Mother herself, piloting her Horus Ridge on.
Your fate is sealed, Star Force One.
And in the blue corner, polished, professional, and fully authorized by Union's Narrative Integrity Board, it's Star Force One, led by Union's Star Admiral, piloting his signature German, Commissioner. In the name of Third Com, you will be defeated here, Paracausal scum.
Organic versus algorithmic, protocol versus prophecy. Let's find out who writes the story tonight. Pilots, Stars, Goal, Power Core.
And let the tournament begin! Welcome back
Everybody.
to the P-P-P.
The P-P-P.
As you may have seen, we're live.
We're here.
Well, we're not live, but we're here.
We're here.
And you can see us. And Jacob took his glasses off.
There's glare. It's fine.
What's wrong with the glasses?
It's fine.
I wonder if the people can see that your glasses are super messed up.
I hope not.
From what? You said acid burns?
No, from oil burn.
Okay. That's tough.
Yeah.
But you're fine.
I am fine.
You protected your eyes.
Exactly.
They did their job.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's good. Hi, everybody.
We're doing Lancer.
Lancer.
Look at this book.
Look at this beautiful book. We're on video now.
Yeah, we are.
We're on video now, so we get it. You get to see the beautiful artwork done by somebody who's got a really cool name. Mastiff Press, custom art cover by Peyton Gee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cover art by Tom Bloom.
Yep. Massive Press, I think, exclusively does Lancer stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A very, very interesting setting or system, I should say. Jacob's going to be the resident expert for this one here, just because he absolutely freaking loves Lancer.
Yeah, I tried to get him up to speed the other day.
It's a lot.
And I basically just, what's the word? Where you just like lore bomb or you lore dump?
You just fire hose
lore
me.
dumped it on you for like a half hour.
I was like trying to make lunch or something, and I just get so setcom, and then
yeah. So humanity has risen and fallen several times. We are now on the third com, first com. No, and I just
just keep going.
And I'm going to do that to you guys
with zero linearity as to like or chronological order. I think you started with sec, went back to first, and then hit third, and then like dipped back to sec. So, and we'll get into all of this first, sec, third, com nonsense. This video is going to be exclusively basically a lore dump.
Yeah.
So, because it is.
So get ready.
Wildly dense.
And get ready for wildly inaccurate information that I recall.
Well, we have the book, so we'll try to mitigate that a little bit.
Not wildly inaccurate, but like
maybe
like solid B effort. Yeah.
Let's do that.
Because it's a lot. It's a lot of information.
This is a thick book.
And we don't write scripts here. It's against our It's against company ethos.
Yes, it's against our procedures.
Yeah.
This is a 400-ish page book.
Yes.
Let's do a quick flip through.
There's a solid chunk of it, which is just all history. So let's dive into it, shall we?
Let's do it.
Yeah, just to give you just a general look on how beautiful this book is. It was, I think the original creator was a graphic designer, so he definitely made sure that it is very legible. Things are easy to find, easy to reference.
Mm-hmm.
You get beautiful artwork. The artwork for all of the mechs, which I will get to, we'll just get to one. Perhaps the Sherman, which is actually one of the most popular mech frames in second
by Harrison Armory, one of the manufacturers, one of the many manufacturers.
Yes, their what do you call it? Their not policy.
Vibe.
Yeah. No, not the policy.
Their vibe?
No, it's like their policy. It's not, I can't think of the word.
That's okay.
Basically, whenever they were making a mech, they wanted to make you feel like that mech was like the main character of their own story.
Yeah. Well, and they chose names to reflect that. All of the names of these mechs,
so we got
specifically
Pegasus.
for Harrison Armory, are all names of renowned leaders from Earth history. Genghis, Iskander, the Sherman, Napoleon. So there's very much a scheme here, a schematic for all this.
But yeah, just an absolutely beautiful book, well laid out. And yeah, they got all kinds of goodies here. There's a lot of fun stuff for GMs. You get templates to create characters, and you can augment them and twist them and make them as easy and difficult as you like. It's so good, so fun, not just for players, but also for DMs.
The one thing that I will say is it's not terribly complicated, but stepping from a purely fantasy role-playing sort of, like table setting, it can be a little tough because there's lots of crunchy mechanical elements that once you understand, it's very easy to grasp, after, a little bit of time. There's a huge online community that supports Massive Press and their product. They have their own proprietary software and web page that you don't have to pay for, that you can go on, create your Lancer, which is the person of the name, or the name of the person who is driving the mech, correct?
The Lancers are specifically highly skilled mech pilots.
Yes.
They're like the elite mech pilots, which are called Lancers. You can be a mech pilot without being a Lancer. But yes, you have your Lancer, who's your mech pilot, and then you get to customize your mech, who in between missions, you can swap out parts. You can later down the line, as you level up, you get license levels, which gives you access to some of the mechs that we saw, or mechs that you can see in here.
Yep.
So in between missions, you can pick a different mech, you can put different weapons, different system parts, you can fully customize them in between missions. So you can, certain missions where you're like, you know what, I didn't like this part, I didn't like this weapon, swap it out for something else. Yeah. It's totally reasonable.
Cool. And, obviously based on the narrative of what do they refer to them? GMs, referee, whatever they call them.
GM, I think.
GM. Anyway, that's a lot of background. Let's get into, so we showed off a little bit of the art. We flipped through some of the contents. This is the contents page. So we'll go back to the mechs a little bit. We may, let's dip into the mechanics first. Head down over here to a little bit of history, and then maybe we can showcase some cool mechs.
Yes.
Maybe dip into a little bit of the missions and downtime after that. The GM toolkit, we probably aren't going to need to touch that. Maybe we can show off some of those NPC templates like you were talking about for the aspiring Lancer GM. Yeah, GM. Duh. That's what they refer to them as.
Yes.
And yeah, does that sound good?
Sounds fantastic.
Freaking do it, dude. What did I say we're going to do first?
Mechanics.
Okay.
Mechanics. Then we'll get into history and lore and all that stuff. And then we can dip into checking out some mech
playing Lancer, page 12.
Well, if you've played Dungeons and Dragons, it's pretty similar when it comes to like mechanical complexity. Every character gets I believe it's called a full. See, we have the book here. We can figure it out. Here. We have the full.
And please forgive us for moving things all the time. We're still trying to figure out the ergonomics of all this. Don't shake the table, Jacob.
We're shaking the table.
Relax. So,
but essentially, all you need, D20, and then it's going to be a bunch of D6s, and then sometimes they'll require you to roll D3s. Just use a D6, divide the result by 2, round up, and you're done.
Very good.
Difficulty checks are going to be based off of a save that your character already has on their character. So for instance, if you're going to be making like a hull save, if something, is going to be doing damage to your hull, you make a save on that. If, for instance, your mech's hull save is 10, then you need to roll a 10 or higher.
And this is hull like Hull.
Hull.
Like the hull of a ship.
There's also a tech save, so that's more for there's no magic in this game, so in this instance it's going to be more of somebody trying to hack into your systems. You'll make a tech save, and then there you go. If you make it, you don't. Yeah. So every character, every mech has its own specialty, or it has its own specific stats, and you can go from there.
Yeah. Each mech is specialized for a specific role,
yes,
more or less.
And in lieu of advantage, say for Dungeons and Dragons, this game has accuracy and difficulty. Accuracy adds a D6. Difficulty also adds a D6, but if it's accuracy, you add that D6 to your roll. If it's a difficulty, you subtract it. If there's multiple, then you take the highest roll.
Gotcha. So it's a simplified, simplified as far as the sheer amount of dice that you have to have around.
Yes.
But not terribly difficult to track.
No, and this focuses more on the mech combat specifically. They do have their own narrative play and their own rules when it comes to using your actual pilot. But it's a lot more bare bones. It's a lot more narrative driven just to get the story going. They do have some mechanics when it comes to doing combat and stuff, and you have your armor and your different weapons that you can choose for that. So if you want to live out your Titanfall fantasy, you can certainly do that.
That's dope. Yeah.
You can get basically an AI that can control your mech for you. So if you want to jump out of your mech, and you can start to breach the cockpit,
style,
breach the cockpit of the other character, and you can jump into that. There's all kinds of fun goodies.
And like it says here, so these are all going to be very familiar terms for people who are familiar with D&D. Like you were saying, skill checks, attacks, saves, contested checks, very common, especially in D&D. You can choose to fail. You have bonuses and accuracy and difficulty that are determined by a stat block or by the GM.
Yes.
Great. Let's move on.
Beautiful.
Look at this beautiful art.
Yeah, they have certain mechanics.
Jacob, name that Lancer.
This isn't a specific lance. This isn't a specific mech.
I thought I'd get him. No,
this is probably an Everest. Everest is like the starting mech that you get. It literally doesn't have a picture in the book because it's so modular, and it's kind of like the base, like the base mech that that most pilots start with.
Gotcha.
You can make it look like whatever you want.
Yeah.
So probably I would say that's an Everest.
I agree, especially due to the whole Everest theme here. We got this crazy like Yeti dog creature that's strapped onto the back with these people look very mountainous.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Do you want to go into grit?
Yeah. Grit is every other license level. You gain a grit. And when you get your grit, you add that to all of your rolls.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of like for your proficiency bonus with D&D. So as you start to level up, your checks get a little bit easier.
Nice.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So, and a lot sort of like Jack of all trades with Traveler.
Yeah. It improves your attack bonus, hit points, and save targets for both your pilot and your mech.
Understood.
So as you get better.
More general survivability for getting hammered by tons of mechs at the same time.
Yes.
That sounded interesting.
And what we're describing now, while we made it sound complex, it's very simple, straightforward. You got D20s, you get a save, you beat the save, you do it.
Yeah.
You got an attack, you roll You try to hit their agility. Agility is essentially their armor class. If you hit their agility, you hit them.
Nice.
Easy, done. The complexity comes in with the wealth of options you have when it comes to weapons, when it comes to system options, when it comes to abilities for your mech, and how they all interact in very interesting and numerous ways.
One thing that I realized when Jacob here so graciously ran a small Lancer combat for me and my brother, who is also part of our D&D team. Shout out Wade, if you're watching. Hopefully you are. Is it's very build heavy. You can what's the word I'm looking for here? You can min-max. You can get an exact build. Like I built a heavy hitter frontline, gigantic energy halberd mech that was just boosting as fast as possible to get in combat range and then just getting in there. And Wade, as he is, my brother, he built a tech mech that was in the back lines, hacking, sending different debuffs down. And it was a lot of fun. It was a ton of fun. And that was just a little taste of what it could be like. So I'm stoked. Hopefully one day, very soon, we will jump into Lancer for a little bit of a mini campaign.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm stoked.
And that same modularity that the players have, the GM also is able to get with the actual archetypes. And especially if you're getting some of the more, I was trying to say DLC because I think game terms, but if you get more of the supplements, it adds even more options, including mechs. Certain licenses, you get like a specific mech, but as you get more of the supplements, you get multiple mechs when you hit certain license levels on like a single license. There's different talents, which are like abilities that your players can get. There's different abilities that you can put for your NPCs, so you can tailor your specific NPC to be just exactly what you're looking for. There's a wealth of different combat styles.
That's right. And like I was saying earlier, there's a huge third-party online community that supports Massive Press and comes out with third-party content, all of which you can download mostly for free and plug in, which is super cool.
To get the actual supplements or the actual books, you have to pay for, but I would say like 90% of the content that they have there, it's just a simple file that you can plug in to CompCon, which is like their proprietary software. And you can get all of the player options and all the NPC options for free.
Cool.
So
hell yeah,
it's incredible.
This is going to talk a bit about the license levels. Talk a bit license levels. Pretty self-explanatory. You start at license level 0, and as you work your way up, you get access to more and more mechs, more and more talent ranks, core bonuses, skill points, all that good stuff.
Yes. 100%.
Let's move on. This is a little bit about the pilot. Here are some backgrounds. Here's a nice little table that you can roll on, that we will roll on, to create just, a plug and play pilot. The character creation process isn't terribly involved, but the focus is more on, I think it's more combat heavy, and it's a lot more just like mech and pilot intertwined because they're sort of a unit.
Yes.
But as we can see here, we got celebrity, colonist, criminal, far field team. And
you've got NHP specialists, which I will talk about shortly what NHPs are.
Yeah. Well, you briefly touched on it. Let's talk about triggers real quick, because triggers is something that is another name that's a common mechanic that's sort of like something you'd find in, like we were talking about Kids on Bikes one time, where it's basically a generalized sort of like phrase that has a mechanical trigger that when a certain event happens that triggers that phrase, that like line, like word on the street as a colonist, you'd have a certain mechanical benefit if you need, probably in this case, it'd be like if you need to get out there and get some information in probably where you are from, or if you're connected to those who are also colonists.
Yeah. If your player's in a situation where their trigger can apply, Like they have one for criminal called Apply Fists to Face.
I love that one.
And if you're in a situation where you can apply fists to face and that is what you want to do, you'll give yourself a +2 on whatever check that is.
Hell yeah. And that's an easy thing to remember. It's just a
Super
fly
simple,
bonus.
super straightforward.
Yep.
Again, out of mech or, the Lance or their actual like pilot combat and like the structure of like narrative play is super straightforward, super bare bones. So you can get more intricate with it if you want to.
Amazing.
But it's basically there to get you in your mech to go fight stuff.
Yeah. We're going to put this bookmark right here. Amazing. That's pretty self-explanatory for all that stuff.
That talked about triggers.
Here is an explanation on triggers. And yeah, let's see. You only need to write down the triggers your pilot currently has, choosing +2 triggers at level 0, license level 0, going up from there. Yeah. So you can say +2 threaten, +2 get somewhere fast, +2 leader inspire, +2 spot. And these are actually checks that you might call for as a GM, right? Yeah. So threaten, get somewhere fast, leader inspire, spot as the pilot. Spot's pretty self-explanatory. Get somewhere fast is incredibly self-explanatory.
Since it's so modular too, you can even create your own triggers. If you do like a printout sheet, they have like blank spaces. So if you want to write your own triggers, you can do that. I
love that.
Super awesome.
I love
super easy. They have these are example triggers. You can use them if you want to.
Cool.
If there's something that doesn't quite fit the situation that your character wants, you're like, you know what? I want to do something else.
Yeah. Look, word on the street, like we were talking about for colonists. Get gossip, news, or hearsay from the streets or from a particular social scene.
Yes.
That obviously applies to your character. And that's so broad, but it's like the lack of granularity does lead to a very easy, like, hey, GM, I feel like this trigger would apply in this situation. They're like, yeah. Sure. +2 bonus.
As long as it makes some kind of sense, then they're fine.
And that's obviously going to be one of those GM specific things where some people are going to be like,
I'm usually pretty lenient when it comes to certain checks.
Yeah.
I'm like, as long as it makes some sense, because for our Traveler campaign, I trust you guys. 90% of the time, like, hey, can I do this? And I'm like,
especially our friend Eddie.
Our friend Eddie.
Eddie, you're gonna watch this. I know you are.
He pushes the envelope.
There's
sometimes where I'm like, no.
Yeah, especially during the D&D campaign, I'd be like, roll this, and it won't even be for his character, and he'll be like, advantage. I'm like, no, Eddie.
No, absolutely.
I love you,
not.
buddy, but God.
But yeah, that's kind of that's the base mechanics. I mean, we can talk about, the whole mechanics and stuff when it comes to mech pilots. That's where it gets super complicated. You basically have your frame. The size determines how big your mech is, because this works on a hex grid system. So a size half, if you're looking for like a visualization on how large the mechs are, size half, it starts at around 10 feet and it goes 10 feet from there.
Nice.
So a size half mech is about 10 feet. A size 1 mech's 20, size 2 is 30, and a size 3 mech is 40 feet. And then they have size 4. You can go higher from that if you want to, but those are just like the player mechs are.
Yeah, that checks out. Dude, this specific art here.
This is a Monarch. Just from Smith Shamana Corpo.
Oof, it just does it for me, man.
Yeah.
It really does. All right, moving on. I think we've covered all this stuff. Weapon size, there's auxiliary, main, heavy, super heavy, pretty self-explanatory.
There's different mounts if you're looking for those. A main mount can have a main or auxiliary. Heavy weapons can do heavy, main, or auxiliary. But a heavy weapon can only go onto a heavy. Auxiliary, which usually comes with 2 auxiliary weapons. Auxiliary are kind of, if you want to use in like D&D terms, auxiliary are like the small daggers or sidearms that you can do. Main weapon is obviously going to be a main weapon, so that's going to be something like a rifle, a sword, an
giant
axe,
energy halberd,
an energy halberd, and then there's the heavy weapons, and then there's also super heavy, which can mount both a heavy and another mount of your choice. So
Gotcha.
So different types of mounts with that. There's different types of weapons, different damage types. There's kinetic, energy, explosive, and there's also burn damage, and those will have their own separate mechanics tied with
we don't
that.
have to get into that necessarily. Let's move on here. Base statistics. That's important.
That's every mech has its own base statistics. And then when you're building your mech, you get point, or every time, what is it? Hold on. It says right here. Your pilot's grit is added to the mech's HP saves. Yes, your pilot's hull is affected by basically, as you level up, you get points that you can allocate into your mech. So you can increase their hit points. They're basically hull, agility, systems, and engineering. For every 1 point, you get usually the top option. So for hull, for every 1 point you invest in the hull, you get 2 hit points. And for every 2 you get, in addition to that those extra hit points, you also get a repair cap.
Gotcha.
Which you can use to reload systems that have a limited amount of ammo. Agility increases your evasion, so that makes you harder to hit. So for every 2, you also get an extra speed. Systems, E-defense, which is going to be for when you're taking tech attacks. And then tech attacks and boost that. And then every 2, it gives you an extra system point, which is like auxiliary systems that give you different benefits. Like you can do it where you can fly, where you get extra hit points. It can be something like having grenades or different types of
super cool.
More, what's the word? Support, or like buffing, debuffing, all kinds of different mechanics of that.
This is what I was thinking about at the very beginning of the video, where I was like, it's more, because initially you're like, oh, it all makes sense. But the more you dive in, there's a lot of like interconnectedness with a lot of the stats and bonuses and traits, and it all sort of interconnects. So it's a very tight web of how everything's interconnected, but there's a lot of dots within that web. Whereas like in D&D, it's like you have your stats, each of those stats links to a skill, and you have a proficiency bonus, and you have weapons, and it's just like it's like this. But this game, it's like a ton of dots, and there's a huge web.
Core concepts all are very simple and similar. It's just the complexity is how they all interact with each other.
And it's a little difficult to track at first. But when you have a very excited GM who freaking loves it,
it's super cool, dude.
It makes it a lot better. Cool. Super sick. All right. Here's a little creation example that I think is pertinent. So here we can see an example character, Taro Oda. It goes in right here, says he's license level 0. It says he's a colonist, and then it goes down to the different talents. It touches a little bit on what is that here? His weapons. This is just far enough away from
medium signature weapon. That's his hunting rifle.
Gotcha.
That's kind of like your pilot specific gear, which they end up getting.
So pilot specific, and then it gets into his mech.
And that's your mech. Everyone starts with an Everest if you start at license level 0, and Everest is built by GMS, General Massive Systems. You start off with the whole catalog of their stuff at your disposal. So that comes with giant laser rifles, kinetic weapons, grenades, different systems. Mech can hover, your mech can fly, your mech has like extra bonuses with certain abilities and certain checks. It's so you start off with a bunch of modularity, and then it just opens up just vastly as you start to level up.
The min-maxing that we were talking about.
Yes. And then they give you an example.
Yes, describes the level up here. Now he's at license level 3, a little bit better gear, more triggers, or no, same triggers, but better. He upgraded some of them, right? So now it's +6. So he added +2 each time to this. This is at +4. A little bit better on the core bonuses, and now new licenses right here. So now he has GMS IPS North Star Rally, which is, what does that say? Rank 1 to 3. So he has access to the rally.
So as you level up, you get a single license, and you can either choose to get it in multiple different ones. As you get the later licenses, every mech has a license level of up to 3 is when you unlock some of their more advanced weapons and equipment and, advanced abilities.
Gotcha.
There's an ability, or all the mechs are locked behind license level 2. But at license level 1, you get some of their signature weapons. You get some of their signature system stuff. It's just rank 2, you get their, maybe you get like a couple more things plus the mech. And then the third one is you get like their top signature weapons. This is what they're known for.
Gotcha. Cool. Amazing. That I think covers it. Here's more amazing art. God, it looks so cool.
It's so evocative. It's so cool. It just looks so
evocative. No one knows what it means, but it's evocative. It gets the people going.
Yeah, it gets me going.
Yeah, it does.
That's for sure.
Woo! Okay, so structure of play, the mission, and downtime. Let's touch on that briefly, and then let's dive into a little bit of history.
Yep.
And then hit the mechs.
Yeah. So how this basically goes is you're kind of going from mission to mission. So they give you some options when it comes to doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You basically set up what's the objective, then you prepare, then you get your you get your reserves.
Then you prepare, then
your moods, then boots on the ground. That's when play starts, and then ending the mission, and then debrief on what happened and how things went, all that good stuff.
Incredible. And then it talks about narrative play a little bit because it's not all nitty gritty combat.
Yeah, it's super straightforward. If you've ran something before, even if you've ran something that's very like rules light, that's kind of how it feels. The narrative play feels at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's DMing. You give them the situation, you tell them what's going on, they make a check, you roll. That's it. You can add some difficulty, or give them some accuracy if you want, and that's pretty much it.
Cool. So some bonuses before the mission kicks off.
Super simple. They have certain things where there's like certain downtime activities when they're in between engagements. You can use their repairs, or you can try to repair your mech. You also have a repair cap, so if you want to help repair your mech with that, your actual mech has a resource for that. And then they give you some proposed downtime. Your opponent, your mech, or your your pilot can be knocked out, so they give you little mechanics when it comes to doing that.
Here's downtime.
Look at structured downtime. Woo! Beautiful. There's certain resources you can try and acquiesce resources and more ammo and stuff. Acquiesce? Acquire. What's acquiesce then?
Acquiesce is to like help, you know, or, like, oh, I acquiesce. I'll do that.
Yeah, exactly. Acquiesce.
Here's a little brief vocabulary lesson midstream or mid video.
So certain downtimes you can even use it to try and do more research on this given mission that you have to give your GM can give you a little bit more info when it comes to things, or maybe intel allows you to know exactly where the next battle will take place. So maybe you can even ambush. You can get a leg up on the situation. So
ambush is actually the old way to do it. Now it's the FM bush.
Yeah. That's right. So power to cost. You get all these proposed downtime activities. Obviously, I'm not acknowledging that.
Okay.
So going. They give you proposed downtime activities, and they give you mechanics to figure that out. If they roll well, they can give you a little something extra. Yeah, it's real nice.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This art is insane.
Mech combat.
What the heck is that?
That is Lich.
That is Lich. Oh, that's the mech.
That's a mech. That's the mech called Lich. Yes.
That's awesome.
Me Lich. This is Blackbeard. That's Sherman. Those are goblins.
Boy, howdy, do you know your mechs?
That's I forget the name of that one.
That's mech number 4.
Gremlin.
Great.
Gremlin.
I think quick combat basics, turn-based combat, pilots in mech combat. A quick combat reference. Let's.
I'll touch it real quick because it wants to make this is referring to the different sizes.
Grid.
Your player is only going to have one mech or size 1, 2, 3. This is for like big boss encounters. If you want to have a giant, massive mech, that's for anything 4 or larger. If you want to scale it up, you absolutely can.
Awesome. Turn-based combat.
This is perfect. This is what we need. So how play goes, it's alternating combat. So if you've played 40K, or if you've played Kill Team, very similar, where in this case, the players usually start off first unless they're in some sort of situation where the enemies get an upper hand. They would start first, and then you alternate back and forth. And then once everyone on one team's gone, if there's more of the other team,
don't try that way in D&D play, because your players will fucking bitch at you for the next 4 sessions because they're going to say it was unfair. And yes, a player character died. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, so you get
a little trauma.
You get a move. You get movement, and that's based off your mech. And also, as you increase your increase your mech's agility. They're able to get a little bit more movement with that, so you can increase that more if you want.
Mm-hmm.
You get either a full action or 2 quick actions. Quick actions are used to, you can use it to fire a weapon, use a certain system.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you have an ability, it'll tell you whether it's a quick or a full action. Full actions are usually when using like a heavy weapon, usually requires a full action.
Mm-hmm.
And then once per turn, you can choose to overheat, which is its own special mechanic. It essentially gives you an extra quick action, which you can use to move, boosting. So you can get like a little extra movement.
Mm-hmm.
It uses a quick action. But every time you overcharge, it increases your heat.
Mm-hmm.
And at first you just gain a little bit, but the more you use it, you actually have to roll, and it gets more devastating. And then once you reach your max heat cap, things go wrong. Your systems could shut down, your weapons could go offline, and then in worst case scenario, your mech's core could overheat and your mech could explode.
Sounds fun. I remember the build that I did when we did our breach session was very heat dependent.
Certain mechs kind of dance. It's what's called the danger zone.
Yeah.
Danger zone.
There we go.
Yeah. It's called the danger zone, which is when you're at half but you haven't reached your full heat cap yet.
Mm-hmm.
Certain mechs thrive in that. They get extra damage. They do more range. They do all kinds of cool shit.
Nice.
And they can expend that. So it's kind of, there's so many different play styles.
Yes.
So there's one that's literally playing, you're dancing with death there.
Dancing in the margins, baby. This describes movement. We do not need to go into all that.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. Mechs can do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's do a lot of stuff, different things when it comes to
what the
cones,
different weapons do,
lines, what different area of effect abilities look like.
If you're a DM or a GM, this is going to look very familiar. It's just hex now. Cool. Cover, harm. Let's move on. Here's all the actions. Here's the full actions right here. Let's actually go back one more page. Here's quick actions. So we can see we got boost, grapple, hide, quick tech, bolster. I believe the ones in purple are, what's the difference between green and purple?
They're tech actions.
Tech actions. So bolster, scan, lock on, and
that's every character can do these ones here. As you get some of the mechs that actually focus on tech attacks, you'll get more options that you can use for that. These are just the ones that everybody can use.
Cool. And then we got our full actions here. We got barrage, disengage, full tech, improvised attacks, stabilize. Very self-explanatory. Here's some other actions that are going to be, I think it says quick or full based on what it is. Like, what do we have here? A skill check, which is going to be full. Shut down, which is a quick action. Could be because maybe your mech's maybe you're like right on the edge of heat and you have an ability that adds heat. Maybe it'd be best to just shut down your mech.
In order to purge, once your mech overheats, it basically shuts down and it needs to purge its core, or it needs to eject its core so it can cool down.
Yeah, that's a really cool.
And you have to shut down your
cinematic.
You have to shut down your mech, and then you have to restart your mech. So you basically lose a turn.
Tough.
In order to get your mech back online.
This talks about overcharge and reactions. We don't have to go into that. Pilots in mech combat, they can do all kinds of stuff. Fight, jockey
can jump onto another mech.
Reload.
So it's very much what I just said it not too long ago. Titanfall. Very Titanfall in that way.
Titanfall, by the way,
quick reference.
If you haven't played the Titanfall 2 campaign,
it's good.
Get you right in the heart.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd feel so heavily for a mech. No. Great.
Yeah. There's different conditions. We don't have to get into that.
No, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
More cool art, more tables, quirks for your mech, I'd assume.
Not for your mech.
For wear and tear.
So death is likely for your mech
Can
pilot.
Cause physical or mental.
But as we'll get into later, this is the far-flung future where cloning is possible.
Nice.
So they can literally get a perfect clone of your character. And it might not be, it might not be 100% perfect. So then they have different quirks for, the different situations that you might get into when cloning yourself.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Now, let's go and look at a little bit of history. Everyone prepare yourselves to hear Jacob talk for
half hour.
No,
We're
not
ready.
a half hour. 5 to 10 minutes.
I will hit wave tops because there's a lot.
Big wave tops.
Big wave
Big
tops.
wave tops.
Okay.
Here we go. History starts on page 334.
If you're following along with us, 334.
334. If you're following. No!
Stop it.
We really need to get our table set up.
It's fine.
the right
We're
way.
getting there.
Ooh, cool templates.
Yeah,
Heck
those are templates for your NPCs.
Super cool.
You get to choose different options within different archetypes, and then there's the extra like bonus things that you can add on there. It's really good.
Cool.
Good
Let's get into it on content, discomfort, and Lancer. I think this is sort of like a red flag. This is cool. I like when TTRPGs and their publisher companies do this. This is a big push, I feel like, contemporarily in the TTRPG scene. Basically, make sure that everybody at the table knows exactly what's going to happen. Because if something happens that is a trigger for somebody, then you want to know that they feel safe enough to tell you, and they're not just going to sit there and feel uncomfortable and not want to come back into play if there's, again, something that's a little bit of a trigger for them.
Yeah.
So I like
utilize
that
something
mentions
with
that.
like an X card. Every player has an X card. When something makes them uncomfortable and they want to stop, they raise the card and you stop.
Because you want everybody at your table to be comfortable.
Yeah.
That way everyone can role play, get into it, and come back and have fun every single time.
Ideally, you'd have that conversation beforehand so you wouldn't have to use that.
Mhm.
But in the instance, you can always have that.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good idea too. Even if you talked about everything and everyone's brought up things that they're uncomfortable with, you never know. Someone might have just gone through a thing and you're talking about something that's uncomfortable and you're just like,
or they can just raise a hand and be like, hey, like, I don't really like this right now. You're like, okay, cool. We'll move on.
Cool.
Curtains.
cool. Skip.
Yeah, exactly. Brum, 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 brum. Hold X.
So
Perfect.
This is kind of a lot.
I'm just gonna sit back.
It does. It's very, So
I mean, look at this.
it's huge. This is this whole portion back here. This is all
lore.
history. And they're, as you saw, they're very dense.
Very dense.
With words.
Very well said, Jacob.
Yeah. Calorically dense is like wordedly dense.
Wordedly dense? You could say vocabularily dense?
Vocabularily dense. I don't know.
Good.
Anyway, long story short, humanity has rose to a point in which it has reached technological superiority. But humanity started to fight over resources.
I'm just gonna do like little sound bites. You go. I'm just gonna over here.
Fighting over resources, maybe not unlike today. We're fighting over resources, fighting over power and weapons. So humanity, as seeing that humanity starting to collapse, the Earth is becoming inhospitable and giant, nuclear explosions. They send out humanity in generation ships, which is scattered across the Earth. And then those remaining kind of in a fallout situation where humanity goes into hiding once Earth is now able to be re-inhabited. They come back. Generations have passed, so all that technology that they had accrued has been lost and forgotten. And then this is leading up to this whole deal right here. Leading up to, this is called BU, before Union, and then it goes it's just going to be after Union's inception, conception. So humanity comes back or emerges from the planet. They start to find all these weapons and resources. They fight again over said weapons and resources, and then they realize that, hey, we need to stop fighting. Let's form Union, which is the Union of Humanity. And they realize, after getting all the weapons and technology, they realize that a lot of those generation ships that they sent out were either destroyed or lost. Are you good?
That one.
Are you good?
I'm having a lot of fun with this.
Okay.
I don't know if I should do this consistently.
Yeah.
though.
Basically, they found out a bunch of fucked up shit happened. They formed Union, and then within Union, there's the first committee, which then goes to the second committee because the second committee, militaristic, overthrows first committee, becomes SecCom or second committee. Then we start finding out that there are those generation ships that we sent out. Some of them reached Earth. Some of them reached a planet and started establishing their own civilizations. which the original Union says, hey, you guys are part of us. And they're like, no, we're our own thing now. They fight. There's big conflict. Then Setcom gets overthrown because they're trying to rule with an iron fist. And then, which is Thirdcom, which is a lot more hands off, a lot more, a lot more dignitaries, a lot more like trying to influence with goods and services as opposed to ruling with the iron fist. And that's basically it. That's the just overview of everything
over the course of 5,000-ish years.
Over the course of about 10,000 years.
10,000 years.
Yes. There's
that's a lot of years.
A lot of stuff that's happened. Eldritch Math Gods get created. There's giant city, large monoliths that appear over massive civilizations.
I'm just going to gently flip through to get some cool art.
Yeah. That's very broad history.
Oh, the utopian pillars are
yeah. These are the 3 pillars that Union rolls by. All shall have their material needs fulfilled. No wall shall stand between worlds, so to allow people to go wherever they want. No human shall be held in bondage through forced labor or debt.
Amazing.
Now, when you're talking about this Thirdcom or Setcom, there was cloning was a thing, and clones didn't have their own rights. We'll be back.
3, 2, 1. We are back.
Yeah, technical difficulties, but that's okay.
Yeah, with
it, baby.
Just this right here.
Just this right here.
But now you get a really good view of this amazing 20-sided wood and walnut Prologue Productions podcast table die. It's an icosahedron, folks. It's got a hole for a candle made by the people that we shouted out a few sessions ago, I believe.
Yeah, a little while ago.
Yeah. They did a really awesome job. It's so cool. We love it. And I'm going to put it back right here.
What is it? 5 penny?
5 penny piece? Yeah, 5 penny piece on Etsy. Check them out.
So good. Anyway, general history.
Woo!
That's what you guys get. There's some key events in there that kind of change the landscape of Union as we know it. First of which, it's called the Deimos event. So it's when I believe it's either first com or second com where this Setcom, I don't remember, but they had found what's called the 5 voices. The 5 voices are these incredibly powerful artificial intelligence, which when used together are able to create a perfect simulation of our galaxy, which I think it's Setcom. So Setcom had used it to determine every major decision that they make to make sure that they make the best decisions for the sake of humanity. Well, during them using the 5 voices, which the people who work on it are called GalSim or Galaxy Simulation, something happened where in what they call perfect simulation theory, where if something exists in a simulation which perfectly replicates real life, then it has to exist in reality as well as the simulation. The 5 voices, in one of those simulations created a god, basically. And because a little blip where this entity existed in the simulation, it all of a sudden existed into real life. And it started to get incredibly powerful. Its processing power was massive. It's basically a god which calls itself Ra. And on I want to say is Monast 1, is one of the moons outside of, I want to say one of Mars's moons. This thing got disappeared.
Here it is.
The whole moon. Yeah, Monast 1 and Ra and the Deimos event. So it disappeared out of nowhere. They created some sort of story on why some sort of experiment, whatever. Anyway, later down the line, Monast 1 appeared in Earth's, like outside of Earth's atmosphere or outside of Mars's atmosphere. and started creating malfunctions within AI, within the robots, within different sorts of machinery, and basically within a few short years took over all of Union. And in order to help, what's the word I'm thinking of? Can't think of it right now. Anyway, while this is going on, it had full supremacy over Union, and Ra made a deal with Union saying that basically I will leave and give you guys back control over all of your systems. But one, don't go researching into what Ra is.
Mm-hmm.
And two, don't try extending life of humanity past its natural means.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't make yourself immortal, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's called the First Contact Accords. And then once humanity agreed, plus a bunch of other stuff, just to make sure everything was in adherence with whatever the two main laws that it made.
Yeah.
And it disappeared.
Amazing.
But in that process, it created all those things that became kind of sentient, were left behind. And those are what are called NHPs, or non-human persons.
Mm-hmm.
They are highly intelligent entities, which Union then uses for their own personal gain because their processing power is vastly, vastly stronger than anything that Union has created previously. And they use it to run a single NHP can run an entire city, can command an entire fleet, highly, highly sought after within Union. They can even replicate them, and they can put them into different systems. They're kind of like a physical being. It's almost like, what are those giant, like juggernaut looking things from 40K, where they basically strap a body into like a casket?
Oh, they're called, not juggernauts. Basically the most like revered adepties, like the most revered Astartes they're called exterminators, I believe. They go in exterminator suits. Let me look that up.
Yeah. So basically these NHPs are placed within a casket and are then used for whatever various purposes. But in order to make them usable by humanity, they have to do what's called shackling them, which basically which frames their way of thinking within that of like a normal human being, because they're kind of like a paracausal thing that they don't adhere to the normal laws of physics and our own way of thinking of causality. So if they don't if they don't like reset them within like a certain period of time, they do what's called cascading, which they break those bonds, and they basically think they can think themselves out of these bonds. And if you're not careful, these NHPs can basically become another god, another Ra. So they're highly, highly dangerous, but they're so useful and so integral to how Union runs their society now that they kind of have to use it. Super cool.
Super cool. Very dense, and has you can really bite into that as the GM and use that as some great narrative elements there.
And through these NHPs, they're even able to create things that don't adhere to the laws of physics. So they have what's called blink gates, because prior to access of blink gates and learning about like paracausal tech, it takes hundreds and hundreds of years in order for someone to reach a certain destination, if not more.
Yeah.
Which those are called cosmopolitans, and we can get into that later. They're basically people who live within a relatively short, like a normal time frame, but because they're getting jettisoned close to near light speed, the 5 years to them might be 50, 60, 70 years to everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So that creates like a cool dynamic with that. But there's this paracausal tech which creates blink gates, which means instead of taking hundreds of years to get to a certain destination, it's near instantaneous. They also have the OmniNet, which is near instantaneous communication, because communication can't be sent.
Mm-hmm.
That takes years because that's as fast as light. You can only transmit data as fast as light can take you, or as fast as radio waves. That's now instantaneous to everybody that's within the core worlds, which is what around direct Union supervision.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the diaspora, which is everybody else, which is all crazy. All just crazy war-ridden.
Fulcrum worlds. Nice. Cradle, Caracas.
So we can get into there's Cradle, which is humanity. There's Rosh Shamra, which is Harrison's world. There's the Onist people, which have their own kind of version of like blink gates and stuff. It's called the Firmament, which is kind of like a paracausal adjacent thing.
Mm-hmm.
So much I could literally talk to you guys for like
for hours. But here's a little bit. It goes into the different manufacturers: Harrison Arms,
militaristic.
Smith Shimano
Corpo is all about advancing humanity and having. It's kind of like the Ferrari of it, but they also do like gene splicing and cloning and all kinds of cool stuff.
IPS North Star.
IPSN North Star is like a shipping company. Their focus is on shipping, so their stuff is built to last. It's built tough. You know, it's like think forward. And then Horus is its own kind of a nebulous entity that lies within. People think the OmniNet. It's basically this amorphous entity that sometimes when you're making mechs, sometimes you get a really weird one that doesn't adhere to the laws of physics.
Cool. Amazing. It goes into some factions, talks about the people.
The Spari, there's the ungrateful
pilots, talks about heroes, and we are done.
Yes.
I think that's it.
So much.
Much stuff.
I've already talked a decent amount about this lore, and you could literally go in for hours. There's a whole bunch in the book. There's a bunch of great videos that you can look up if you look up Lancer lore. There's there's a couple amazing ones that we can link in the description.
Yeah.
That talk about it in much more in depth than I do. So good, so interesting. Even if you want to use it as inspiration for a sci-fi campaign, it's like so much juice. There's so much
big old fruit to squeeze.
Juicy content to pull from.
Oh yeah. All right, everybody. This has been our first video delving into Lancer. Little bit of technical difficulties. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any suggestions, anything that you want us to cover, any questions, please let us know as per usual. And as always, thank you so much for supporting us by just watching what we do, because we love doing it.
Yes, we do.
All right, everybody.
Catch you next time, lol.